Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Rabbi Abraham Cooper. I'm the Associate Dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. We're here this morning at the Museum of Tolerance. It's already been quite a morning for us. Just a few minutes ago, the First Lady of Iraq, Mrs. Hero Ahmed Talabani, left this room. She's actually in the museum right now. A great leader, a great humanitarian. Liba Geft, the director of our museum, and myself were in northern Iraq about 2.5 weeks ago. And yes, we're currently negotiating the rights to the film rights for that unbelievable experience of being there. But actually, we were in northern Iraq because the Simon Wiesenthal Center will be putting together an exhibition in the 20th year since Saddam Hussein gassed his own citizens. In Halabja, thousands and thousands of people. Remains pretty much an untold story. And right now, it is a special honor for us to be a part of this remarkable weekend of the American Freedom Alliance, led by my good friend Avi Davis. And on Sunday, it'll be my honor to also be present when the Prime Minister, I know, he's the former Prime Minister. I'm a guy who loves to break all of the rules. For us, this is the Prime Minister. Okay? In the Jewish tradition, allow me, in the Jewish tradition, as you know, Jews are known to have a very long memory about our enemies, but the secret is we have a longer memory for our friends. And John Howard is a man of action, not just a man of words. Whether it was 9/11 or other threats of terrorism, he stood by his friends, his allies in the United States and around the world. And even before the Bali massacre, was warning the world about the threats that we're currently living under. I note with deep respect that we have 3 consuls general, new Consul General from France, a good friend from the Czech Republic, and also the Consul General from Germany. This morning, the intelligence and law enforcement officials in Germany, thank God, acted quickly in Berlin, and looks like they forestalled the possibility of a terrorist attack. So we already know that, and we're reminded by the enemies of freedom every day, that if we don't stand together, we're going to sink, and sink very, very quickly. It is quite telling that on this 70th anniversary of the Munich Accord, so-called Munich Accord, that first sealed the fate of a democratic country known as Czechoslovakia and its people, and set the stage for the horrors of World War II. There are times when you have anniversaries of history where you have to go into a whole long explanation of why it's important to remember. And we have certainly a very powerful lineup of people to do so this morning and at the program also on Sunday. But I think that the average citizens around the world get it, that the price of appeasement in the world we live in today is going to be unbelievably, but for sure, much higher than the price that was paid for appeasement in World War II. Before I returned for a time with our other distinguished guests, I wanted to ask Avi's permission if I can ask the former Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Australia, still known as the Prime Minister, if he would just come up for a moment. We have a small gift we would like to present to him on behalf of the Simon Wiesenthal Center.
Thank you.
These are the 9 documentaries that the Wiesenthal Center produces. My boss, Rabbi Heyer, right now is in Jerusalem, has 2 Academy Awards in his office, not 1. So he's not only a good rabbi and a brilliant leader of this, the Wiesenthal Center, but a wonderful filmmaker. And we hope that you'll have an opportunity to view these documentaries, including a wonderful biography of Simon Wiesenthal himself. And again, on behalf of the entire Jewish community here in Los Angeles and the 400,000 members of the Wiesenthal Center, I just want to say thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to meet you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now to run the proceedings of this incredible lineup of diplomats and survivors the people who were there, people who did not ask to become survivors, who were citizens of a wonderful democracy. I want to recognize all the survivors who are in the audience and wish them a Shana Tova, a sweet year and a good year for them and their families. And now I'm going to ask the Senior Fellow and Executive Director of the American Freedom Alliance, Avi Davis, to convene this morning's press briefing.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Simon Wiesenthal Centre and the Museum of Tolerance for the wonderful hospitality they've showed me, and particularly to Rabbi Cooper for his help and assistance in planning this entire series of events. 70 years ago, the democracies were faced with the rise of fascism and its escalating threat to freedom. For close to a decade, they had watched Adolf Hitler gather power and vent his determination to reclaim German glory, conquer lost territory, and annihilate the Jews of Europe. And yet very few in the West believed Hitler would enact his terrible agenda. They did not think he had the mindset to commit his country to a Second World War, nor did they believe that any man who had experienced the devastations of the First World War could even contemplate another conflagration even more devastating than the first. They believed that a policy of appeasement would offer Hitler a means of sating his territorial appetite. They were, of course, wrong. Hitler could not be appeased, nor could he be accommodated. For Hitler, war in itself was a goal, a means of hardening the soul of the German people for the purposes of advancing and defending the goals of the Third Reich. They were also wrong because Hitler did not merely seek territory. He sought to undermine the Judeo-Christian values upon which civilization had been built. The lessons of Munich live with us today in ways in which we perhaps don't even realize. Our fear of appearing weak in the face of aggression can be attributed to the events of 70 years ago. Every United States president since World War II has invoked the spectre of Munich in some way in supporting some aspect of foreign policy. And the policy of appeasement has come to represent simply not conciliation, but cowardice and an unwillingness to stand by principle. Today, in the wake of the Cold War, the global geopolitical situation is reminiscent of the treacherous years before the Second World War, with such nations as Iraq and Russia challenging core values of democracy and freedom. And the time is therefore right and appropriate to recall the danger of appeasing modern dictators who deny human rights to their own populations and citizens and threaten war against other nations. It is also time to remember that appeasement of certain minorities in our societies, whose ideologies and beliefs might be inimical to democratic life and liberty, are policies which need to be considered very, very carefully. As Rabbi Cooper alluded to, we have been running a series of events this week to commemorate the Munich Agreement. We began with an event on Wednesday in Chapman University on the historical lead up to Munich. We had an event last night to examine whether appeasement is alive and well in today's world. And of course on Sunday we hold the crowning event of these series of activities, and that is the commemoration itself. A remembrance of what happened at Munich. It will involve a number of different things, including a new documentary on the Munich conference that the American Freedom Alliance has produced, an address by Congressman Ed Royce, testimony from Czech survivors, many of whom are here today, video presentations from Václav Havel and Liam Fox in England, and of course the presentation of the Winston S. Churchill Medal of Freedom to John Howard, Prime Minister John Howard. I have the award here, which you may see, and this is the award that will be given to Mr. Howard on Sunday. The event begins at 1:30, the reception at 12:30, and the event begins at 1:30 and will end approximately 3:15. Any further information, you feel free to see me a little later. We have asked Our events have all been co-sponsored by the consulate generals of many of the nations who participated in the Munich conference and were the victims of it. And I would like to call upon the Consul General of the Republic of France, David Martinon, to join us in delivering a few words of support for this commemoration.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. When I called you, I must tell you that I've arrived 1 month ago here, so I'm brand new in town. And one of the first letters I've found on my desk when I arrived was this letter of invitation for this event, and I immediately called you to tell you that, of course, we would support this event. And so thanks very much for the invitation. Yes, indeed, Munich for us, the conference of Munich, is painful and represents for us a duty of remembrance. And I can tell you, I told you that my friend Georges-Marc Benamou, who's a French writer and who used to be President Sarkozy's cultural advisor, I tried to take him here, but he cannot. He had to stay in France. But he wrote a book called The Ghost of Munich on the character of Daladier. And this book was published last year, 2007. And I can tell you it was a big success in France. That means the French people is still very interested in understanding what happened at that time. And it was a success. He told me that the great director Milos Forman would take a movie out of it very soon. I hope it will be another success because we have to know, we have to remember what happened. So I'll be there on Sunday, and I will try to give maybe a few more information of what I understood, what I learned about the Conference of Munich. But definitely, it is for us, for the French political life, a structural key. We use every day in French politics the word Munich. If somebody wants to denounce the alleged political weakness of somebody else, we say, this is Munich. Vous êtes un Munichois. You come from Munich. You were there. It's very common, and so this is the reason, one of the reasons why we are very much interested in understanding and remembering what happened. So, congratulations for what you've been doing. We of course support completely and deeply what you've done, and thank you very much. And bye-bye.
It's now my pleasure to call upon the Consul General of the Federal Republic of Germany, Dr. Christian Stocks.
Thank you very much for this invitation to be part in this commemoration of the Munich Agreement. It is, of course, not the easiest position for a German diplomat to be part of this commemoration, because after all, it was German diplomacy which prepared Munich. As a matter of fact, Hitler despised the diplomats because they forced him to come to Munich. This was nothing Hitler wanted to happen. Hitler wanted war to happen, not appeasement, not an agreement. But before I start, I wanted to take this opportunity to remember a particular day in Berlin a few years ago. Prime Minister, when you came to visit Berlin in Germany, and I happened to be the chief of protocol then of Berlin, and you made it a point to pay tribute to those Australian airmen who participated in the Berlin airlift exactly 60 years ago. This was another lesson learned from Munich, never to give in on pressure. That is how the airlift started.